Hello World Wide Web, I'm David Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. And with summer finally over, September 23rd is officially the first day of autumn. They've been fucking you in school all these years, just thought you should know that. Anyway, the point is we can finally move on from Stallone's work to some of David Carradine's work. Death Race 2000. Released in 1975, meaning it's one of those rare movies that's actually older than I am, Death Race 2000 was originally intended by Roger Corman to be a completely serious, dark, and grotesque film about a dystopian future where people have about the same amount of rights as your average speed bump. However, the director Paul Bartel thought the film was too intense to shoot. However, changing it up to a dark comedy, along with the help of a rewrite by Charles Griffith, it would become the cult classic we know today, and which led to several unremarkable sequels and a 2008 movie that people generally don't want to talk about. Of course, despite being toned down in theory to be a comedy, the film still managed to be an interesting satire of totalitarian government regimes and the seemingly increasingly violent forms of entertainment and the dark places it will lead humanity, despite the fact that violent crime has been in a steady decline for decades, and we actually live in the safest era since ever. But that's not important. What is important is that the ever-increasing bloodlust of the people must, of course, reach a fever pitch with mass-televised, ultra-violent entertainment, either in the form of a dual-stick shooter in 1999, or a psychotic race across the United States in the year 2000, where your victory is secured not only by reaching the finish line before the other racers, but by racking up points in certain other activities along the way. Now that I've explained what most of you probably already knew before even clicking on this video, let's take a look at Death Race 2000 and get a little more in-depth, shall we? After the opening credits, in stunning Crayola vision, we jump immediately to the celebrations as the nation's greatest race is set to begin, with all the patriotism and... Well, at least there aren't any of those damn offensive Confederate flags around. The Deacon, played by Bill Murray, announces the start of the 20th annual Transcontinental Road Race of the Great American Multitude, which means they correctly predicted a lot of this shit would start going on once the 80s hit, so good on them. Point is, this is to introduce us to all of our contenders in this event.
All right!
See? Fuck, don't do that! God damn, 70s fashion was fucking terrifying. As I said, this is shown much like a televised sporting event, so they grabbed Don Steele off the street, likely dressed in that neckerchief with a giant-ass pink collar, and just handed him a translucent plastic cylinder and said, "Here, it's a microphone from the year 2000. Boom, sci-fi history was made." More importantly, he introduces our first racer, Calamity Jane, played by Mary Woronov, driving a Bullmobile. Well then, it's not easing us into the concept of over-the-top vehicles slowly now, is it? As with all the racers, Jane has an opposing sex navigator, Pete, played by William Shepard, who just the year prior played Rock Freak in Phantom of the Paradise and choreographed the wedding scene. When the fuck am I gonna get around to reviewing Phantom of the Paradise? Fortunately, Junior Bruce isn't the only journalist on the scene, and we get a break from him on occasion to see the story of the big race as told by the perspective of Grace Pander, played by Joyce Jameson, as she introduces another one of the top 5 racers in the country.
In just a moment, he will be coming through the doors!
Let's move on and introduce another one of the top 4 racers in the country.
There is no cause for alarm.
We just have to unplug him and plug him back in.
The patient has been flown in from abroad in a state of suspended animation in order to facilitate the healing of his recent limb transplants.
Did you get that? Limb. This is the future. He wakes up shortly after in possibly the worst place he could.
Frankenstein, can you give me an exclusive?
An exclusive? Just you, Frankenstein, and the 20 or so other news reporters crowded around the scene. They start talking about the president and his vacation in his palace in Peking, but that's not important. What we really want to see...
Here she is, that adorable swastika sweetheart, Matilda the Hun from Milwaukee.
Milwaukee? Fucking Nazi Superman Aryan race from Milwaukee. Anyway, Matilda and Herman are played by Roberta Collins and Fred Grandy, respectively.
Today, California.
Tomorrow, the world.
And if anyone thinks this movie is trying to glorify Nazis with this guy, you need to be slapped. Every race has an underdog, though, but in this one not only does no one care, but they actually shouldn't, because making it onto this race is the most impressive thing he'll do all movie. Nero the Hero, played by Martin Kove, who you probably recognize as Mercenary Erickson from Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Sit still, Cleopatra, and stop blocking me. My fans want to see me.
They've never seen a has-been before?
Even his navigator Cleopatra, played by Leslie McRae, knows better than to give a flying fuck about this guy. But we almost forgot to introduce Frankenstein's new navigator, Annie, played by Simone Griffith. Not to mention Frankenstein himself, played by none other than David Carradine.
I'm trained as a nurse.
I don't need a nurse. I need a navigator.
I've only done this race half a dozen times. I can't possibly remember the route on my own. With that out of the way, there's just one last racer to introduce. The big bad villain of this movie. Worse than cowboys and Nazis combined. Machine Gun Joe.
And he's certainly getting the welcome he deserves.
Fucking... again? You know what, I'm not really as annoyed at Stallone bleeding into the reviews following the summer as I am at certain others. Unlike Frankenstein's fans, whom collectively seem to say, F you, Machine Gun Joe.
Lousy sons of bitches.
It's okay, Stallone. Just take a deep breath and... go Rambo. Before it was cool. Hey, how the fuck did you miss absolutely everyone in that crowd? Fuck, even a stormtrooper would at least wound one of them. The final one to make it to the starting line would be Frankenstein himself in the Chud-mobile.
You will regret that, Joe.
It's a long race. You will get tired and thirsty and thinking about that saliva that you now so foolishly wasted. The broadcast shifts focus over to the fucking Return to Oz, so the president, played by Sandy McCallum, can exposit a bit about how there was a societal crash in 1979, but no worries, his totalitarian government is here, so it's all good.
And seek the golden key to a new time of plenty in the fertile field of minority privilege.
Oh, then, no wonder the world's so fucked up. With that out of the way, the race is on. It's pretty easy to see the far shots are under-cranked, making the cars look like they're going faster without as much motion blur as it would have if they actually had been going that fast. However, considering all far shots are done like this, it doesn't take long to get used to it. We don't go far, however, before the other major plot line is revealed.
Frankenstein is the biggest target in the world and a personal friend of Mr. President's.
That, Lieutenant Fury, is exactly why they'll call off the race. To save his life.
It turns out Annie is not just a new navigator, but a saboteur working with the rebels against the American government. Yes, rebels. It was the 70s. Being rebellious was really popular. Wait a minute. The thing is, Frankenstein doesn't know that Annie has ulterior motives just yet, as the only thing she seems interested in is finding out just how mutilated and horrifying he looks beneath that mask.
What you expect?
John C. Alluding to another strange point in the plot, as Frankenstein was patched up after horrifying wrecks in at least 5 races, and yet he is not just one big hunk of stitches and scar tissue. But what's this? Joe's route has some road workers fixing the... okay, the road looks perfectly fine. But they're in the middle of it! Most manage to flee, but the guy with the jackhammer doesn't quite hear Stallone coming.
Yes, sirree! A clean hit!
Surprising, because even if we assume the car was designed to be able to tear through people without too much damage, I would assume that the jackhammer would have at least made a dent. This event reveals the dark twist to this race. The drivers earn points by running over pedestrians along the way. So not only do they need to be fast, but deadly.
But teenagers now rack up 40 points, and toddlers under 12 now rate a big 70 point.
Yeah, but are there multiplier pickups or combo bonuses?
The big score, anyone, any sex, over 75 years old, has been upped to 100 points.
I suppose you could just park in front of them and wait a while. Alternatively, you can depend on the sociopathy of strangers, such as the staff at Mercy Hospital, whom set up a huge array of elderly patients out in the middle of the road.
What is that?
Euthanasia Day at the Geriatrics Hospital. They do it every year.
They used to call it Chuck the Old Folks in Front of Cars Day, but that was a PR disaster. Heck, the patients don't seem to mind. Guess it beats the hell out of the 500th game of bingo, but just then. Frankenstein behaved unpredictably and killed the doctors. How shocking.
Annie saved those old people.
Hot dog, I bet my granddaughter murdered those medical professionals. I'm so proud of her. Nero, however, is doing pretty bad, pulling up the rear in the race, and he hasn't scored a single pedestrian. But what luck! There's a family out enjoying a picnic. Murder time, fun time.
Go for the baby! The baby!
It's the damn doll from American Sniper, get it! Except this one is supposed to be a fake baby, to give Nero the hero a Cabbage Patch surprise of death. Well, Resistance, way to take the guy out that literally no one in the country is going to give a flying fuck about. It doesn't help that the media immediately launches into distracting everyone from that, covering how the widow of the construction worker Machine Gun Joe killed the fuck out of won a brand new apartment! And then the broadcast is hijacked by the Resistance so that Thomasina Payne, played by Harriet Midian, can tell the American people that they have killed and will kill again. For the good of mankind!
The age of obedience is over.
And all that is required is for all of you to do exactly as I say.
What the hell was that?
Shit, you know you're far gone when even the Nazis think you sound too extreme. After a few more points are scored, this brings day one of the 3-day race to a close. And they've already fabricated a story that Nero hit an exploding tree.
Everybody knows he was blown up by the Resistance, you schmuck. It was on television.
That was just a really artistic commercial for jockstraps, nothing more! After the movie takes a break for a gratuitous naked time, the second day of the race is on. But oh dear, Frankenstein dropped his glove. Gotta get it back now.
Chrysler!
I've done my good deed for the day. Remember, kids, don't litter. After a short deliberation, the judges decide that yes, Frankenstein does get points for running over a race official, which makes me wonder why the others don't just turn around and clear at the whole fucking crowd, but I digress. Along the way, Annie convinces Frankenstein to take an odd route that she insists will land him massive points, just about securing his victory as early as day 2. He is hesitant, but decides to at least investigate the possibility.
Frankenstein, stop the car!
Hold on. What the hell?
So, did he run into some cosplaying fans, or an S&M convention? Or run by, not into. You gotta specify in this movie.
Sorry, brother.
Never mind.
That's the best ambush the Resistance can come up with. We got nothing to worry about.
We're only at the halfway point. They've got plenty of time to learn from this. Trying to figure out why and how he was set up for the ambush, Frankenstein goes over many possibilities, but never muses on it being the woman sat right next to him that told him to go that way. However, he does test her loyalty.
Come on over to my side. You're gonna drive for a while.
Or test to make sure his seat isn't wired to blow, one of the two. While Andy gets acquainted with the wheel, Calamity Jane is stuck out on the highway with car trouble. And Nazi trouble. No. Blitzkrieg is a heavy military operation that quickly pounds an enemy into submission. This would be a Fahrerflucht. Matilda, running Jane's navigator over, seems to have jerked his arm just right to repair her car, and this instantly translates into a car chase. But watch out, the Resistance is here as well, and have taken a page from Looney Tunes for their current plan to kill the racers.
Teacher, I really needed that right
now. But it works, so you can't really fault them for that. I just wonder how long it's going to take for some of the Resistance to try and strap a giant firework on their back and light it and catch Stallone.
A special bulletin. There's been an accident, an explosion. It looks like Matilda has been blown totally...
Correction! Matilda has made an impressive score. Stand by.
Okay, I can see the media twisting Nero's death by explosion to death by tree, but how the hell do they expect to cover up the death by falling off cliff to winning the lap? Never explained, but back with Annie, they come across a child in the road.
It's always best to start small.
Tomorrow we can come back and murder his father. Or Annie can freak out, swerve out of the way completely, and negate the score.
Take some practice.
now? Before it comes easy?
It never comes easy.
Kids are slippery little motherfuckers. Well, that's enough of that. Frankenstein takes over from here, taking the opportunity to threaten Annie's life, and learn that the place she was telling him he'd find down the back road full of elderly folks to score doesn't actually exist. Still, he keeps her with him long enough for her to exposit that she is in fact Mrs. Payne's granddaughter, and was working for the Resistance. They intended to kidnap Frankenstein and give an ultimatum.
Your life in exchange for the permanent abolition of the race.
Yeah, either cancel the races forever, or we'll murder your top racer, who probably wasn't going to live that much longer anyway. Great plan! This brings day 2 of the race to a close, and we get a clearer view of who the real enemy is, according to the mainstream media.
There has been a lot of talk about American rebels. We have positive proof that it was none other than the treacherous French.
Silly movie. The media wouldn't actually bother to mention that American rebels were even an idea. So Nero the hero was killed by a treacherous French tree, and Matilda the Hun made a great score by being murdered by the French. It makes perfect sense. Therefore, after a night of miscellaneous backroom drama and naked time, the third and final day of the race is underway.
You get a load of that face?
Yeah, I wonder if somebody got points for that eye.
Okay, how much longer do they have to live?
They're off! Frankenstein, holy crap! Joe has just scored his own pit crew!
Still though, why doesn't anyone just turn around and make a loop through the whole fucking audience? All I see are points everywhere. Before long, Jane is besieged by bikers, and not being one to walk away from a fight, chases them down. Unfortunately, this is exactly what they wanted her to do, leading directly into a minefield. On the plus side, she realizes this soon enough, and decides it's best to leave. Which is, to be honest, this kind of felt pointless. Especially considering I don't even know if those bikers were part of the Resistance. And you look at the wrecks in the car graveyard, a lot of them look older than the amount of time the Resistance has actually even been resorting to violence. More importantly, Frankenstein drugs his drink before offering it to Annie. This knocks her out conveniently around the same time the Resistance set up yet another ambush point for him. Being unconscious means Annie can't turn the engine off. Unfortunately, they assume Annie not responding means that Frankenstein killed her, and resort to just bombing the fuck out of him.
Well, America, there you have it. Frankenstein has just been attacked by the French Air Force.
Hey, hold on. They've been watching this whole time to be able to tell whenever they run someone over in whatever backwoods fucking place they are and approximately what age and gender they are, yet no one has been able to tell for this whole fucking time that Frankenstein's been racing without his mask. The point is, after he and Annie catch up on things when she wakes up, how the Resistance attacked, several of them were killed, but it's okay because they were French.
It's not over yet.
I'm afraid it is.
Hey!
Annie, what the fuck are you trying to do? Kidnap him by yourself? He stops her easily enough and explains the best thing she could do right now is help him win the race.
I need your help.
How can you possibly expect me to help you?
You're my navigator.
It's your job. You don't want to get fired, do you? He points out that his robotic hand is equipped with a hand grenade, and his desire to win the race is actually just to shake the president's hand and blow both of them up, ending this totalitarian nightmare.
Now, wait a minute. I don't want you to die.
Bitch, you just tried to run him off a cliff! With that, they come down to the final stretch, just Frankenstein and Machine Gun Joe, roaring down the street. While Joe has some tricks to mess Frankenstein up in the short term, they still wind up neck and neck, at which point, Annie has an idea. Brilliant. Now he'll definitely win the race, and... oh yeah, the handshake of death. It's used that... Fuck, you really don't Resistance very well, Annie. And new plan. When they arrive to shake hands with the president, now they intend to stab him with a pocket knife. But wait! Mrs. Payne is in the crowd and shoots Frankenstein. Now why the fuck didn't she just shoot the president?
Frankenstein, are you all right?
Even better, shot her own granddaughter. Fucking brilliant move there, Thomasina. Yeah, Frankenstein was still in the car, so he just runs the president the fuck over. Looks like all that plotting and planning was superfluous, as the entire nation is instantly happy to know that the president was fucking killed. So much so, they inaugurate Frankenstein as the new president, along with sweeping changes to the government.
I plan to pension off the secret police, restore free elections, end minority privilege.
I should point out that while minority privilege sounds like something very different today, when this movie was made, they were actually trying to talk about the concept of a ruling class of the super rich that actually have more rights than everyone else. Come on, something crazy like that would never happen.
What about the race?
The race is abolished.
Abolished?
That's right.
You can't abolish the race, Mr. President! How the hell are we going to explain the other 3 movies in this series? By running this annoying fucker the hell over, bringing this story to a close, with President Frankenstein and his wife Fanny living campily ever after. You wanna know what's really scary, though? I cut out most of the silly parts for this review due to time constraints. Think about that for a minute. Anyway, that was Death Race 2000. And it's fucking brilliant. It's pretty clearly a product of its time, but the presentation holds up today, in my opinion. The concept of spectator sports becoming ever more violent as time goes on, and therefore getting to the point of having death as an unavoidable consequence, or in the case of Death Race 2000, the entire fucking point, has been done several times before. What sets Death Race 2000 apart, however, is that it balances the absurdity and vileness of the concept by unashamedly embracing the idea that it is meant to be entertaining and cranking up the campiness to 11. From the moment you see the first ridiculously over-the-top vehicle roll into set, you know you're not watching something trying to be overly serious with the subject matter. Strangely enough, that works for being able to bring up dark and serious topics with it, like the media cover-ups and what have you, because while it can be seen as being part of the overly dystopian society, you can see similarities drawn in the real world without feeling like the movie is being overly dramatic about it, when it kind of avoids that feeling by being the definition of overly dramatic. But oh hell, I'm no good at this. The point is, Death Race 2000 clearly succeeds in being entertaining. It's got the racers scoring points for stupid fun, and the interwoven plot of the rebellion to make you think. There are a few weak points like the inconsistency of the media cover-up, which isn't that big of an issue when you think about it, but then in the back and forth with Annie in the third act, along with the fact that there were plenty of opportunities for these people to just kill the president if they just stopped being so damn convoluted about it, that keeps the movie from being absolutely perfect, but I'd still say it's worth a good 4 Futterfluchts out of 5. It's a lot of fun to watch and talk about, as long as the people you're talking with about it aren't going to be overly upset that the movie's about running people over, or that one of the main characters happens to be a Nazi. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I've been Shado, and remember, just shoot the president! I'm not gonna get sued for that, am I?
Mr. President said it was the French who knocked off Nero and Matilda.
Gallant heroes.
Watch out for the creep, Suzette.
Calamity Jane Kelly.